I have immersed the last decade of my life obsessing over what makes relationships work. With a master's degree in marriage therapy, multiple books on the subject, speaking on stage, and helping hundreds of men learn to take their marriage from surviving to thriving. And one of the most life-changing skills I have learned through all of this is how to recognize my bad relationship habits and how to break free from them. So in this video, I will teach you 7 of the best relationship habits I've learned to help you avoid the pain and regret of heartbreak, and instead learn to cultivate a relationship that not only supports your life, but is a vehicle for continued growth and even spiritual expansion. The first concept is that projection leads to rejection. So projection is the idea that essentially whatever fears you have or emotional schemas or pockets of cognitive distortions, which means like just the way you see the world, you project it onto other people. Let's say, for example, you grew up and you learned that you have to, like, other men are competition, right? You have to fight for women with other men. Other men want to fight you because you grew up, your brother always had to fight you and you had to fight in the schoolyard. Like, you were always just fighting other men. So you may have an underlying belief that all men are competition, or that you have to fight your way through life. Like all these like idioms that people have, axioms, they're projections oftentimes, which means I had a guy that I worked with in anger management. And I would hear him say these little idioms like, oh, you have to fight your way through life. And he grew up with, literally fighting his brothers. They would pick on him and then he had to fight through school. And lo and behold, he got in a lot of fights as an adult. It's because when you come in with that underlying belief, you're projecting that onto other people. And so he acted in a way to get into more fights. Now, this happens in relationships as well. For example, let's use the most common one that is my personal story in my life, which is that I was cheated on in my early relationships. Now, cheated on in first 2 relationships. So I clearly adopted the belief that, all women will cheat. And so there's a confirmation bias that occurs where I would only see guys talk about that, or I would only see videos online that would promote like, oh, look at these women cheating, right? And so I would come into relationships thinking deep down that she's gonna cheat. So how did I act? Whenever she was around talking to another guy, or she told me some guy hit on her at her work, or she's on the corner texting, do you think that I was nonchalant, relaxed, confident, not assuming, trusting? No, right? I projected the idea that she's gonna cheat on me, okay? So then what happened in my 3rd relationship is I cheated on her and I ruined it, okay? Because I thought she was gonna cheat on me. And I projected the idea that she was going to, therefore I did it before she could hurt me, okay? And that was the most painful experience I've ever had in a relationship. And you're doing this yourself all the time. For example, I want you to fill in these blanks. Marriage is, love is, my wife is. Now, whenever the first word that comes to your head, that is a tell of how you view the relationship. Because if a lot of guys say, oh, marriage is hard, love is difficult, my wife is I don't know what you said there, lovely woman, hopefully, right? But if you're honest with yourself and the first word that came to your mind, that is subconsciously playing out, projecting onto your wife. And most often, your insecurities are the things that are running in the back of your mind, which often will lead to rejection long term. The second concept is that love is a habit, not an emotion. More than ever, we're dopamine addicts, okay? And a lot of people, they erroneously think that, oh, you know what, I should just follow my emotions. Now, I know women oftentimes are more victim of this than men. Men, we have honor, we have word, we have integrity, right? More so when we less follow our emotions. But still, a lot of people, when things will get tough and difficult, and the dopamine and serotonin and that love high isn't there anymore, we start to look outside the relationship, especially when times get hard. And this is evident with my generation, I know, and younger, that, well, we're getting married less and less, as you can see from the study right here. But the way I look at this concept is that also when the dopamine fades and that love high is gone, your real self is being exposed, okay? And no matter who you're with, that real self and your wounds or your baggage will always come up. I think times are always going to get tough, no matter who you're with, right? Someone who's been in a lot of relationships myself had to learn a lot and seen this with so many clients, guys I've worked with that are in the 3rd marriage and yada, yada, yada. It's the same problems come up in different relationships, okay? It is not the other person, okay? Your same patterns will always come up. You go about recreating past relationships, past wounds, and hope that next time it'll be healed. And so I want you to start treating love as not this fickle thing that you're just trying to seek paradise, but actually see the conflict as a good thing. And it's an arena. Your relationship is an arena for spiritual growth. Okay, there are lessons that you are supposed to remember about yourself and why you are here. And I'm speaking to you so you remember this as an entry point. And if you don't learn it with your partner and work through that and have an honest inventory about why she is so upset. It is not her trauma. It's not these bad things about her. It is you, okay? It is the thing. I know she's not perfect, but you can only control yourself, right? And so you must take an honest inventory, put that ego down for a second and learn. Remember why, okay? All right, work on that habit. Love is the habit. Develop it. Unrealistic standards. We want our one person to be our sexual liberator, our best friend, our spiritual advisor, our loving mother, nurturing and confidant. Now, you are trying to get them to be other than they are, right? Other than she is. So here's the thing. You must lower your expectations on who they are.
You want love, lower your expectations.
No matter who you're with, it goes back to the previous point I made, but no matter who you're with, they're gonna have their flaws, okay? You may find someone that doesn't have the flaws of your wife or your girlfriend, right? You may find that person, but she's gonna have flaws too, okay? And instead of trying to change her and be upset, see, story with my partner, I'll share my partner. I saw her through the prism of her trauma early on in the relationship. That she had all this trauma, and I know a lot of wives do, right? All this trauma growing up. And when I saw her through that prism, I saw her as not being good enough, right? And that when she was acting out, it's because of her trauma. Not because of me and the things I was saying, it's because of her trauma. Recently, I started to see her as this healed, perfect being, that she is the way she is. She's, you know, it's like she's a bird and she's singing a song. It's like, oh, I don't like the way that song sounds, and I'm trying to change it. It's like, no, she is who she is, and she's whole, and so am I. And operating from that paradigm alone, that yes, you are flawed human beings, but that's okay. And what that does is it doesn't create resistance. You know, in conversation, you're not trying to be defensive and try to show your perspective. But if you just saw the way I know that hurt you, but like if you did that to me, it wouldn't hurt me. So you should be healed. You should see the way if you just saw the way I saw it, if you just saw the way I saw things, you wouldn't feel this way. Like, come on. Like, why are you acting? Why are you feeling that way? You see what I mean? What that does is it makes her feel invalidated. Like, I'm not okay to experience my own emotions. Like, you're so controlling, right? That's the response, right? And so you must accept that what you are doing and who she is because it's who she is. Just say to yourself the next time you're talking to her, like, it's okay for her to feel this way. Even if it's a negative, especially if it's a negative emotion, see what happens instead. Beautifulness. All right, so the next biggest habit that is a huge issue with all the people I work with, men and women combined, is you can't set boundaries appropriately, okay? Now, you're either the spiked turtle, right, or the Velcro monkey. Let me explain. Let's take an example of two guys, same boundary being crossed, but they have completely different responses with these two types of animals. I just saw a guy comment this, and it's a very common trope with the guys we work with in our program, which is the wife wants a divorce, okay? Now, for a lot of guys, that is a boundary violation. You want to divorce me? Like, all right. Now, what does Spike Turtle do? Spike Turtle in this scenario says, you know, you want to divorce me? Screw you. We're done. Then goodbye. I'm lowering up. It's done. Like, I'm going to ruin you. Like, whoa. Like, get away from me. You hurt me, and I'm going to hurt you back. Even I'm going to be vindictive. That's the Spike Turtle. But guess what? What happens to the Spike Turtle when they're aggressive? They try to hurt back even more. They push people out of their life. They never have that self-reflection. They end up alone, okay? Then there's the Velcro monkey. Now, they know that their boundaries are being crossed when the wife wants a divorce, but they're so afraid of being alone, they attach. Like, no, don't leave me. Why are you doing this? Like, with the memories and what about the kids? And like, how could you do this to me? They're attaching. They're being needy. They're being clingy, right? And you're one of these two, oftentimes, that you don't express your boundaries, not being assertive, and saying this is against my boundaries, and I'm, you know, I have a whole video on boundaries you can watch at the end of this video. I'll put it at the very end, how to deal with boundaries appropriately. But I just want to tell you the two negative ones, right? That's the Velcro monkey and the Spike Turtle. So you have to recognize that you do assert your boundaries, but you're open the conversation first, okay? Again, that video at the very end will go into depth about that. So let's get into the next one. All right, the next concept is that men, you guys, women too, but I'm talking to men right now. Men don't understand polarity. Polarity, I have a whole amazing video on the channel about how to pass tests and polarity. Just type in how to pass tests on the channel search bar and you'll find it. But, okay, look, you are a man. Man, you're masculine, okay? Now, there are certain features of masculinity that you must uphold to create attraction. Now, in order for a woman to be with a man, there needs to be two types of men that you're showing her. You must be the protector and the provider. Now, but the provider gives her the emotional connection, the niceness, the vacations, the home, just providing financially, but also just providing resources and your kindness and your givingness, right? Your niceness. And a lot of guys think that this is enough. Like, I'm giving you everything that you want because social conditioning said that this is the kind of guy you want. Even all your friends say they want a nice guy, even you want a nice guy. What women don't tell you is that this component of, some women are gracious enough to know this and tell you, so if that's your wife, then you got a good one, but she wants to protect her as well. There are these inherent subconscious subcortical traits that trigger these emotions that even if you have all these qualities, if you don't do it here, it just doesn't do it for her, okay? This is that authentic core masculine man that is able to lead, okay? He makes decisions for his wife. He is unreactive to his emotions, which means he feels the negative emotions, but he doesn't react to them. He calms down and he says something from a higher state, okay? He passed her tests, right? He's that calm shore to her wild, raging ocean, right? He holds that container for her, that space. He gives her that certainty that I'm gonna be there with you. I'm gonna be devotional to you. I'm committed to you, okay? He takes charge, right? He's dominant, okay? Dominant is not a bad thing, trust me. He's dominant. He dominates, yes, in the workplace, but he dominates his body as well. He dominates his spirit. He dominates his emotions, right? He commands himself. That is that authentic polarity, that masculine trait that will activate her feminine. So if your wife, girlfriend has been cold and shut down and she's in her masculine, it's because you've been far too feminine. You have not been in your masculine core, right? Which is also a big reason why she loses attraction as well, right? The sexual connection. So you must understand polarity. Now I'm going to read 2 quotes from David Data, The Way of the Superior Man, that talks about this masculine core identity you must develop. First one, you are only punishing yourself when you want to be in a relationship with a woman more than she wants to be in a relationship with you. Pedestal effect, neediness, that's what that's talking about, okay? The second one, every man knows that his highest purpose in life cannot be reduced to any particular relationship. If a man prioritizes his relationship over his highest purpose, he weakens himself, disserves the universe, and cheats his woman of an authentic man who can offer his full, undivided presence. Read that book if you haven't. The next habit is the Jonah complex. Now, the Jonah complex speaks to one's fear of success. You see, yes, we are afraid of failure. Failure, think of it, leads to death, right? Too much darkness and there's no light, okay? You failed, you're hopeless, you're nothing. We don't want that. But the Jonah complex argues in psychology that people are also afraid of their greatness, right? This will come in the form of self-sabotage. So if you know the whole statistic that people who win the lottery, right, 77% of them go back to their baseline money after like 7 years. It's like, how is that? Like, get a financial advisor, right? Save the money, put it in a trust or something, right? Some investment firm. But the thing is that we all have these set points of happiness. We have a set point with our weight. We have a set point with our relationships, okay? And a lot of times, the way this shows up in relationships with your wife is that if deep down you have this wound of like, are you really lovable? Are you good enough? When she says things to you and you think that, oh, I'm not good enough for her, that's your own thoughts. You're interpreting her behavior as you're not good enough. That wound is there. She's just pressing on it. You see what I mean? And so deep down, if you think you're not good enough, go back to rejection leads to rejection. It's kind of similar here. If you think you're not good enough, you're going to do things to sabotage the relationship. I mean, I know you're probably even aware of this. Looking back at the relationship, there are things that you've done that have pushed her away. You've said things you know you shouldn't have said, right? There are 10 examples I'm about to give you on how this plays out. The first one is avoiding vulnerability, or being afraid to open up and share your true feelings and thoughts can create distance and prevent deep connections. The second is overanalyzing or overthinking. Constantly questioning your partner's motives and actions can lead to unnecessary conflict and mistrust. The third is comparing to past relationships. Measuring your current relationship against past experiences can just create unrealistic expectations and prevent you from appreciating what you have now. The next one is the fear of rejection. So this is preemptively pushing her away because you're afraid that she'll leave you eventually and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The next one is a lack of communication. You avoid difficult conversations or not expressing your needs can cause a misunderstanding and resentment to build up. The next one is setting unrealistic expectations. So expecting her to meet all of your needs or to be perfect can lead to disappointment and frustration. The next one is testing your partner. Yes, I know I talk about tests with women, but creating unnecessary challenges or tests to see if she really loves you and can erode and destroy security. The next one is dwelling on negative thought patterns or focusing on the negative aspects of your relationship, or your partner can overshadow the positive and create toxic atmospheres. The next one is holding grudges or not forgiving past mistakes or continually bringing them up can prevent your relationship from moving forward. The next one is self-doubt or believing you are not worthy of love or happiness. It can lead you to behave in ways that really undermine your relationship and withdraw or act out. Remember what I said, we go about recreating past wounds in hopes that next time they'll be healed. So on a subconscious level, you are creating these wounds. Now the seventh and most powerful habit I say for last is a whole new paradigm shift in regards to how you view conflict in communication. It is not you versus her, okay? I know she's the one that's causing the pain, you're causing her pain, so like, what do you mean it's not me versus her? It is you and her versus the problem. All right, so the next time you're in conflict with her or conversation, if she's willing and able to, I want you to try to sit next to her, okay? Not look directly at her. And I want you to visually take your hand and say, like, this is the problem we're facing. This thing happened. Now, it's not displacing your own responsibility. Yes, you can say, I did this and she did that. And use I feel, right, and you feel, okay? But still coming together, shoulder to shoulder, and getting us as a we, not versus me and you, just that whole literally paradigm shift and taking the problem and putting it out in front of you too. It, on a subconscious level, presupposes that you guys are on the same team. And that little shift in itself works wonders. I remember doing this in therapy sessions towards the end of therapy when it was working better and better before I decided to do the one-on-one help with guys. But this technique did help, where I would get the couple and I would have them move over here and sit next to me, where all three of us together, okay? And I would put a chair there in front of them, and I would put a prop usually. And that prop would be the problem. And it's like, okay, how's this thing come into our life? And I even went as far as saying, like, there was a virus that infected you guys. Like, oh, the wife, your father experienced trauma, and with you and her mom, like your mom and dad had the same exact problem, and now that virus carried over to you guys, and that virus is growing between the two of you. And I know it seems kind of weird or silly a little bit. What do you mean a virus? Like, no, trust me, doing this and seeing the problem as like a separate virus, an emotional entity that's feeding off you guys because it needs to survive and be around, using that example, it's very powerful as a metaphor, okay? I want you to try it. Tell me how it works, okay? So those are the 7 habits. Here's the video on boundaries right here. You can check it out, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.